Morning, everyone. Sorry to be a little bit clumsy this morning. Um, Today we'll be reading Trickster, his Apocalyptic Brother, and a World's Unmaking, an archetypal reading of Donald Trump by Randy Fertel, Fertel, PhD, is a professor of English who has taught at Harvard, Tulane, and the New School of Social Research. His award-winning memoir, his award-winning 2011 memoir, The Gorilla Man and the Empress of Steak, unspools untold tales as he tries to make sense of his parents and himself in a colorful, food-obsessed New Orleans, New Orleans. In a colorful, food-obsessed New Orleans. Susan Rowland calls his award-winning new book, A Taste for Chaos, The Art of Literary Improvisation, quote, important to Jungians because it says something new about archetypal dynamics and literature. He has been a contributor to NPR, Smithsonian, International Journal of Jungian Studies, Journal of Modern Literature, Kenyon Review, Spring Journal, Gastronomica, and Creative Nonfiction. He founded the Ridenhour Prize for courageous truth telling in 2003 in memory of his friend, My Lai whistleblower and investigative reporter Ron Ridenhour. He is a trustee emeritus at the Kenyon Review. He was named one of Southern Living's Southerners of the Year in 2017 as part of the team that created the New Orleans music history site, A Closer Walk. The Fertile Foundation helped fund the James Hillman Uniform Edition. Okay, so that's who Randy Fertel is, quite a well-known Jungian. And let me set up my screen a little bit differently so that I can see everybody. Good morning, Art. Nice to see you. And good morning, Cherie. Good morning, Cherie. Sorry. Your names are coming across a little differently on the YouTube chat today for reasons beyond understanding. And anyway, it's typical of the time of the trickster. Let me finish getting dressed. I had a sudden surprise yesterday when the wife of a friend who recently died, the friend recently died, called me and asked me to give his eulogy and a combination eulogy and sermon, which is quite an honor, but quite a task to even contemplate. So my mind has been taken up with that, and well, anyway, that eulogy will be on December 13th, and so I'm going to be thinking about that a lot in the future, in the next 3 weeks. Okay, the name of this essay is Trickster, His Apocalyptic Brother, and a World's Unmaking, an archetypal reading of Donald Trump by Randy Fertel. There are a couple of quotes There are a couple of quotes that are given at the beginning of this essay, which I'll read to you. Good morning, Michelle. Nice to see you. Face it, folks. We are a divided nation, divided between those who think with their head and those who know with their heart. Because that's where the truth comes from, ladies and gentlemen, the gut. That was Stephen Kohlberg in Coining Truthiness. The great question of our day: how can consciousness, our most recent acquisition, which has bounded ahead, be linked up again with the oldest, the unconscious, which has lagged behind? C.G. Jung. Improvisation and the rhetoric of unmediated spontaneity. Seen through the lens of archetype, Donald J. Trump is a very dark version of Carl Jung. Was ever so heterogeneous a pair, so violently yoked together. Okay. I'm sorry. I may have to laugh my way through this. I haven't read it in a few years. This is a from I'm reading from Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, edited by Mary Stein and Thomas Arst. And this particular edition, just so you know, was published in 2018. So during President Trump's first administration. Anyway, let me try to do this. I'm sorry. So,
I can jump in if it's too much.
yeah, okay. I'm going to start again. And this is by Randy Fertel. Improvisation and the rhetoric of unmediated spontaneity. Seen through the lens of archetype, Donald J. Trump is a very dark version of Carl Jung. Was ever so heterogeneous a pair, so violently yoked together, one so interior, the other without apparent interior, one so erudite, the other functionally illiterate, one so urbane, the other at best suburban. I should have pre-read this. Okay, reading on. This paper explores how far one can take this apparent enantiodromia, Jung Trump, with the intention of showing how Jung's Red Book might prepare us to weather Trump's presidency. Again, this was written in 2018. I will argue, perhaps even more surprisingly, that along with his fellow modernists, Jung bears indirect responsibility for Trump's embrace of fake news and alt facts. Okay. Very timely. Jung's Dance with the Devil, the Red Book, by means of which he conjured his analytical method, finally saw the light of day in 2009. 2 years later, Trump began his Devil's Dance, embracing birtherism and conjuring his run for the presidency. Both dances seek to catalyze a new world order. Both dances welcome, though in far different ways and to different effects, the human shadow. But what links them first and last is that they are both improvisers. Improvisation is an enduring form of discourse across literature. visual arts, music, and even politics that displays persistent formal gestures and thematic concerns. The links among the links among improvisations have been hidden in plain sight, largely because all claim, like the Red Book Liber Novus or like Trump's campaign and presidency, to be unlike anything you've ever seen, uncanonical, a newfound thing. As its etymology suggests, improvisations claim to be unforeseen, spontaneous, off the cuff, uncrafted, unmediated, careless, inspired, formless, and or chaotic. By deploying a decorum of the indecorous, thumbing their nose at the mainstream, improvisers try to persuade us that their art is not the product of reason, artifice, or virtuosity. Rather, they model a more open, sincere, authentic embrace of life, challenging logic, reason, and craft. Improvisation calls for change. As the Jung persona in the Red Book says of magic, improvisation is lawless, without rules and by chance. His two epigraphs to the Red Book underscore that the goal of his quest is uh, is unforeseen. Jung first quotes Isaiah's lament that the Savior will come as a surprise, Isaiah 53, 1 through 3. Editor Sonu Dasani notes that Jung reuses the same verse in his next book, Psychological Types, and there explains Isaiah's lament. Quote, the birth of the Savior, the development of the redeeming symbol, takes place where one does not expect it, and from precisely where a solution is most improbable. The Red Book will be about the quest for the birth of the Savior and the development of the redeeming symbol by means of his improvised active imaginings. His second epigraph, again from Isaiah, is again glossed in Psychological Types. Quote, the nature of the redeeming symbol is that of a child. That is the childlikeness or presuppositionlessness of the attitude belongs to the symbol and its function. This childlike attitude necessarily brings with it another guiding principle in place of self-will and rational intentions, whose godlikeness is synonymous with superiority. Since it is of an irrational nature, the guiding principle appears in a miraculous form. The criterion of godlike effect is the irresistible power of the unconscious impulses. At improvisation's heart, as here, beats the spirit of Trickster, a challenge to rationality and a flirtation with philosophical primitivism, childlikeness, or presuppositionlessness. Since antiquity, improvisation has been the discourse of paradigm shifts, those cultural moments when reason, the way we know the world, is challenged and redefined by the irresistible power of the unconscious impulses or some other rational faculty or agency. Okay. Do you have any comments on this so far, Michelle?
I do. Let's go back. Okay, the Book of Isaiah is where the Jehovah's Witness movement comes from. I had an aunt who was Jehovah's Witness. Um, and improvisation. Um, Improvisation. Well, improvisation is like acting,
Yes.
and acting back in the Greek Hellenistic times was considered a form of communicating with the gods. And and those techniques were taken, I forget, by these two, it was a couple, like an acting coach, and they started the New York School of Acting. And Marilyn Monroe went there, like when she decided to be more of a serious actress.
Hmm.
And that's where method acting came in. And it's all about the techniques involve imagination, relaxation, and then concentration. Like you have to be relaxed, but not so relaxed you fall asleep. And like getting yourself into that state of mind, um, that was what that whole school of acting was about.
Hmm.
So I just think that that's really interesting.
Just like we do every Sunday on this YouTube channel. Um, and as Cherie points out, vocatus aderat, non vocatus deus aderat. And I'm not quite sure we have the right letters of that quote from Latin, but these are the words, these are the letters and words that were over Jung's door. Called or not called, God will be present. And Jung later admitted, 50 years later, that um, God is the unconscious and the collective unconscious. Uh, and um, you don't have to believe that. I'm not proselytizing. But nonetheless, I did a talk in 2019 um, called Finding the Living God. And um, and for my lights, now I get it. Uh, I grokked it. And I've struggled with the idea of God all my life. Um, and uh, for me, after 35 years of study of Carl Jung's work, um, I get it. Um, and he got it. He knew that the religion of his father, a Swiss Reformed pastor, um, didn't quite get there. And so uh, he darkened the door of the church in Kusnacht only twice. He went there um, on his wedding day, and he went there at his funeral. Those were the only two times that Carl Jung went to church. Uh, and I think from his perspective, um, many religions are apostate or they haven't grokked it yet. Um, and um, and they certainly have influenced lots of people, lots of religious wars. I'm an American because of the 80 Years' War, which ended with the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. Um, and and so that was a war in which the Catholics of Spain came up to Holland every summer and just tried to beat the Dutch, the hard-headed Dutchmen, back into Catholicism. And in the fall, when the crops came in, the Dutch would flood their country and the Spanish would go back to sunny Spain for the winter. And they were they did this for 80 years. 80 years, just imagine. And finally they grokked it. Or I don't know if they grokked it, but they finally got it that they weren't going to convince one another. Uh, and we have a person saying hello from Ireland. Many thanks for your discussions, your discussion, much appreciated. And Cherie mentions Book A Player's Place, the story of the Actor's Studio by David Garfield,
Mm.
1980. Um, and so I'm sorry I'm a little disjointed today, Michelle, but you were talking, I believe, about Marilyn Monroe and her method of acting. I wonder if you'd say it again because I was distracted by what Cherie had said.
Oh, sure. Maybe I can explain it better this time. Well, in the method acting, which was taken from the Hellenistic, and then they used to have the Eleusinian initiation ceremonies or something
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
Um, well, their way of communicating with the gods was like the oracles, and then it was also through acting, and their method was involved imagination, relaxation, and concentration.
Hmm.
Basically, like getting into the flow state, because in method acting and something that Marilyn Monroe did have, even though a lot of people made fun of her and said she was talentless, um, everyone said she had good timing, which is a part of the trickster and method acting, being in the zone. Um, and I've been reading about like how to get into the zone.
Hmm.
And the weird thing is like you have to push yourself into the zone, and then like once you're in the flow state, it flows. But it's up to you to get there, and then it comes.
Well, see, I don't agree with that.
Oh, really?
No, because um, I'm in the flow state every time I'm in one of these um, conversations. Okay, I connect with my unconscious instantaneously when I begin to work with these materials. And the way I know that is because after we've finished each week, I have no clue what I've said. My conscious mind cannot connect at all to what we've been saying for the entire 2 or 3 hour period that we've been talking. And so I don't believe it's a push. I think per se, I do believe that um, there, as you said, method acting. Uh, the poster boy of method acting is Daniel Day-Lewis, who played Lincoln in the movie Lincoln, and um, and Sally Fields played I think it's Anne Lincoln, um, played his wife. And in a sense, yes, he he pushed it because he wanted to be Lincoln. And um, and so the essence of method acting is to be the character during that time. And Daniel Day-Lewis has done this his entire acting career uh, magnificently. Um, and he's been awarded uh, heavily because of that. Uh, and what he does is he simply puts himself in um, the role as soon as he knows he has the role. And uh, so in the case of Lincoln, um, he had the role for 2 years before they actually filmed. He knew 2 years before the actual filming of Lincoln that he would play Lincoln. And as soon as he learned that Sally Fields would play Lincoln's wife, um, he began to communicate with her through social networking um, as Lincoln and encouraged her to communicate with him as um, I think it's Anne Lincoln, but I don't recall her first name. I'm sorry about that. He encouraged her to respond as Mrs. Lincoln from that moment on, which they did. And the two of them um, really became those two personas. Um, and and so it wasn't a question of going to the studio every day and forcing himself into a state. He simply used his experience of then 2 years to be Lincoln. He was Lincoln in those 2 years, and he he never went out of character, even between takes. He always dealt with people as Lincoln, and uh, and Sally Fields did the same thing. And uh, the result of it is quite wonderful, and and it is a connection with the unconscious. So, in a sense, I mean, in some sense, I agree with you about it's a forcing, but it's not. I mean, it's a forcing in the sense that he simply became Lincoln, and and so when he got to the role and the lines that he would speak in the movie, um, you know, he was Lincoln in that time. He was the spirit of Abraham Lincoln, and I I don't think that either one of them um, forced it at the time that they were acting the roles. I think they became those personas. Now, in my case, I don't have to force anything because I am I am who I am. Um, and um, and so I've never tried to force it. Maybe I'm relatively unique in that I am highly intuitive. And uh, Michelle, I think you too are highly intuitive, or you wouldn't be here on the screen with me. But both of us interact with what we're doing from the unconscious, not from our conscious minds. I mean, you before you sat down in this session, when you were having breakfast or having your shower, or what have you, you had no thought of what you would say today, and you still don't, and I don't, also, right? And that's being authentic. That is being yourself. And I said earlier in the session that I had been asked yesterday to offer the eulogy and or a sermon for uh, a friend of mine who, um, honestly, I did not know him very well. He was my bridge partner, and we played together every week um, for a decade. For a decade,
Hmm.
we played every week, and we had a unique style of play together. He was an engineer and very logically oriented and a very good bridge player. And I don't I don't play by convention. I play by intuition. And quite a few times I remember his eyebrows going up when he heard one of my bids. But we had fun together, and so there was a commerce between our psyches during that time. And so when I was asked yesterday by his wife to uh, give this eulogy come sermon, uh, it was a eulogy and or a sermon. I said, phew, I got to think about that. Give me an hour to think about it. And I thought about it for an hour, but as soon as I hung up, I already knew what I would say in the eulogy. And so it's only a question of getting it down or being able to speak it in public and having it be as meaningful as it needs to be in the funeral of a great friend of mine. But, you know, all of these things come from the heart. Um, and I think that um, I think that uh, Jung's point, uh, which Shuri reminded of us of, vocatus sotove non vocatus um, Deus aderet. Um, I don't think we have the Latin quite right there, um, but in any case, called or not called, whether you do it in prayer or not, God will be present. And if you if you accept that, and after much struggle, I have accepted it, um, then you know that God will be with you. And in my case, I I already realized what I will do on that day, um, and the eulogy wrote itself already. Um, and so uh, all I have to do is make suitable notes for the event, and I'm going to try to um, at least record what I have to say. I don't know if I will video record it, but I will. Uh, I, I'm not sure that's appropriate, but I will try to keep my words because I think that they'll be relevant. Um, I don't know. Let's go on. Shall we go on? Let's see what people have said here. And so we were talking about the actor's studio. Shuri was doing it, referring to that was one of the places she attended in New York City. Marilyn wanted to become a real actress. She was a natural. except for her problems with her childhood and drug addiction and alcohol, as many have fallen into. Uh, we also had many great teachers, Stella Adler, Uta Hagen, and Michael Chefkov. Uh, and
Yeah, I do
Teresa,
remember
yeah, go ahead.
the people who started the movement were Eastern Europeans of
Mhm.
some sort.
Yeah. And Cherie goes on, she said, I didn't enjoy that particular film, although I love Daniel Day-Lewis and Sally Field. Truth matters in history, although with the producing, directing, writing in films has many different ideas and power exists. Much empathy for the loss of your friend. Thank you, Cherie. Okay. Um, here's one thing I learned from this experience since yesterday is that it's a good idea to have a very good friend or a friend who is 10 years younger than you and and who would be willing to eulogize you. And my friend was 85 years old, and he only had 21 birthdays because he was born on February 29th, 1940. And so he was older enough to me to have me agree to do his eulogy. And it's writing itself. I have some homework to do over the coming weeks, but uh, because he was born in Denmark and stayed close with people in Denmark. He had four four siblings, all of whom he had six siblings, but four that survived childhood, and he was the youngest, and all of his siblings have already passed. And but he was very close with his family in Denmark, and um, he had been at a family reunion only in August and came back with pneumonia, unfortunately, and it finally got him. And I don't know. I don't know if there's any good way to go, but yeah, they say that pneumonia is the old man's friend, and I did have it once. Let's see, when did I have it? I had it in maybe in 1985. I think it was in 85 that I had it, so 40 years ago. But when I had it, I did not want to move my pinky finger. I did not want to move. I just had no energy whatsoever. And so I understand the meaning of that traditional statement about pneumonia. Okay. Um, So anyway, going on, scholars explain away the claim of spontaneity as the topos of affected modesty, or as the convention of anticipatory self-defense. But hidden in the disclaimer of rationality and craft is a boast. If the appearance of reasoned behavior has such currency and power, psychiatrists and and neuroscientist Ian McGilchrist skeptically calls it the rhetoric of reason, then for what purpose would one boast to be free of it? Um, I did not remember that Ian McGilchrist is a psychiatrist and neuroscientist. Obviously, many followers on this YouTube channel do refer to Ian McGilchrist very often, and he's no doubt a brilliant man and still is. Um, and but I didn't realize it was partially because he's a psychiatrist. Anyway, uh, to begin a true critical study of improvisers, one first must refuse to play the Goldilocks game. Was it improvised too little, too much, or just right? Truman Capote suffers such a lapse when he complains of Kerouac. That's not writing, that's typing. That's not writing, that's typing. Um, Referring to Kerouac. The Red Book was begun as the Black Books in 1913-14. From 1914 until 1928, the manuscript was worked, reworked, and reworked. As James Hillman points out, was it improvised or crafted? As with most improvised texts, the answer is yes, both. Rather than play the Goldilocks game, we must see that the effect of the rhetoric of improvisation is to challenge the value of reason. With regard to Trump, the Goldilocks question takes this form. Is he an accidental maelstrom or a canny manipulator? Again, the answer is yes, both. Whether or not Trump consciously deploys the rhetoric of spontaneity and its resulting chaos, the point is that it continues to work for him, sowing the chaos he relishes. Trump's taste for chaos must be analyzed to understand the power it has had. The gesture of spontaneity assumes the primitive premise that life is better or more authentic when unadulterated by the artifices of mind, city, or civilization. The literary form associated with this premise is pastoral, where shepherds and shepherdesses frolic in a bucolic Arcadia. The pastoral tropic The pastoral trope expresses our ambivalent, complex longings for the locus amoenus, the good and pleasant place, imagined as Alir or Jadis elsewhere or long ago. Glimmerings of that happy place can be accessed. The premise runs by spontaneous activity or through our limbic brain. The discourse of improvisation is infused with this longing for some form of unreason to inspire one's life. The great examples of improvisation don't necessarily give up reason. They are arguments, but from nature, but not in the end for nature. Thoreau urges the tonic of wildness, but he would not have us follow him into the woods. He retreats to get away from civilization. Quote, men labor under a mistake, unquote, but journeys to the woods to live deliberately, from uh, deliberare, to weigh carefully. Most improvisers give us a taste of chaos, but don't invite us to swallow it whole. Not Trump. Trump's slogan, Make America Great Again, relies on the pastoral trope, evoking a greatness recalled from some past golden age, or, as Hillary Clinton describes it, a dark, divisive, negative version of nostalgia. The Trump roots are in Queens and Manhattan suggests that his largely rural base has mistaken a trope for a type. Um, I'm a very instinctual person, he trumpets, but my instinct turns out to be right. Trump is not alone in privileging our instinctual nature. In the Red Book, Jung argues that modern man's problem is that they did not live their animal. What appeals to Jung is that the animal does not rebel against its own kind. The animal lives fittingly and true to the life of its species, neither exceeding nor falling short of it. How might we achieve a life at one with our instincts? Improvisers will speak of the muse, intuition, automatic writing, drugs, depending on their epic's particular paradigm shift. Jung's paradigm shift will involve various constituents of the unconscious, dreams, archetypes, and collective unconscious. The Red Book asserts that the world accords not only with reason, but also with unreason. But just as one employs reason to make sense of the world, in that what is reasonable about it approaches reason, a lack of understanding also accords with unreason. Unreason, free of the directed ego, sorry, unreason, free of the directed ego, is Jung's plan for living attuned to instinct, fittingly and true to the life of our species. Trump may direct his appeal to our baser instincts and Jung to the benign teleology of the self, but they share the longing for a better place and a better way of being that is achieved spontaneously from sua sponte, of its own accord. But not all instinctual behavior is benign. Instinct, intuition, spontaneity, and inspiration, they have brought us great and terrible results. Some eurekas are just dumb ideas. Homer's Homer's Odysseus, sorry, Homer's Odysseus is the king of improvisers, but his improvisations get every one of his crewmen killed. President George W. Bush, the decider, didn't need State Department analyses. He looked into Premier Putin's eyes and saw directly into his soul. Hitler is the most monstrous example. In Jung's report, he listens intently to the stream of suggestion from a whispered source and then acts upon them. Once you have opened the doors to external or to instinctual forces, dampening reason's ability to judge, you never know who will take the helm, whether the force steering you will be divine or demonic, healthy or pathological. How do you judge once you've dismissed judgment? President Trump is giving a bad name to improvisers everywhere. Okay, I have to take a moment to get myself a glass of water. I'll be right back. Could you speak in that time?
Oh, okay. I'll give it a try. All right, let's see. I'm definitely going to highlight this one sentence that says, once you have opened the doors to external or instinctual forces, dampening reasons, ability to judge, you never know who will take the helm. I'm definitely going to highlight that one. I think that one's a really interesting quote. Sort of like that Forrest Gump quote that says, life is like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. I guess that's what the unconscious is like. Um, Let me see what else. Hmm. And I guess there's this other sentence here that says, unreason, free of the directed ego, is Jung's plan for living attuned to instinct, fittingly and true to the life of our species. I'm going to highlight that one too. Oh, I found a really good quote that we went over that reminds me of what you were saying. Like, you don't have to uh, push yourself into the flow state. I guess the sentence says it right here. It says, unreason, free of the directed ego, is Jung's plan for living attuned to instinct, fittingly and true to the life of our species.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that puts sums it up.
Yeah, I don't know whether what I'm doing here is good or bad, honestly. Uh, and I don't consciously ask to be paid for anything that I do here for that, partially for that reason that um, I don't I really don't know whether Carl Jung was good or bad, honestly. Um, what I do know is that for me, um, I struggled with the idea of God, and for a long, long time. Um, I don't even remember from whence. I know that when I go to church, I feel better afterward, but I don't know why. Okay. And at one point, I was deacon in the Reformed Church in my community up in the Rochester, New York area, and um, I couldn't I couldn't put my finger on the meaning of the first verse of John, which is, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And I I kept saying, and I have said until about 6 or 7 years ago, I said, has anything happened since the beginning? Don't we know something better from that time? And I had the help of a dear friend, a Methodist minister, who explained to me that it wasn't the word that was significant. The word was only a symbol, and it was a symbol for what was behind the word. Um, and and so as I've thought about that over time, I'm more and more convinced of it. And um, my friend who died um, named his two sons John and Christian. and uh, and so I will be using John 1 through 14, 1 John 1 through 14, um, as part of what I'll be talking about in my friend's eulogy. And of particular note is John 12, which says that uh, Christ was not the only Son of God, which is what the fundamentalists won't give up, um, because it says quite clearly in the Bible that um, Jesus himself said that um, we can be sons and daughters of God, all of us. And certainly I can say that about my friend Niels. And he was certainly a son of God, and he's not precluded from that because Jesus Christ was also the Son of God, not at all. Um, and so, as I said, when I hung up from the telephone yesterday, this eulogy simply wrote itself. and and my friend and his wife um, in effect wrote it through their lifetime by naming their sons John and Christian. Uh,
That's interesting. Like
yeah,
um like the way that the Bible uses the word as a symbology.
uh-huh.
Um yeah, it's like very quantum, it seems. Like Hegel said it like every moment is an unfolding
Hmm.
of eternity, and according to him, like nothing happens by accident. Um and I guess according to Hegel, like even if you're trying or not, you are living that moment according to you, I guess, like whether you know it or not.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I was just distracted by Cherie's long dissertation, which came out of her discussion of the actor studio, um, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read it as you watch the YouTube channel. Um, anyway, I'm sorry, Michelle. What was the last thing that you said? Do you know?
Don't really rem something about something about what Hegel says, like every moment is an unfolding.
Correct. Okay.
And
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
And our audience is seeing that right now, okay, because we're both working with the unconscious, and and in the same sense that you almost instantaneously couldn't remember what you said a few seconds before, that's a proof of it. And I think we should realize and remember James Hillman wrote a wonderful book, which I've now read twice, called The Soul's Code. And it specifically talks about this unfolding, and that your life is really uh, predetermined in the acorn, just like all the trees. Every tree, the oak is um, is prefigured in the acorn, and while every oak is different, every oak is an oak, and while every human being is different, each of us has our own acorn, which involves many, 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 many millions of different um, givens and takings uh, every second. Every second is different. Um, and our cells, even in the depth of our cells know what to do in every second of our lives. They know how to be the kind of cell that they are, and they know how to reproduce themselves. And they know that they will some eventually die away, which they do. In most cases, the cells of our bodies change every 7 years, as scientists have now told us, and are replaced by other cells that um, do the same thing, and they do it for many years before we get to the point where they can't keep up any longer. But we are predestined for what we have become. So anyway, now that we've established that Trump is giving a bad name to improvisers everywhere, let us go with the next section of this essay. Jung and Trump embracing spontaneity. One cannot overemphasize the role of spontaneity in the careers of both Jung and Trump. Jung begins his career with the premise that psychological complexes can be discerned by tracking the speed uh, of patients' spontaneous word associations. The analytical psychology emerging from the Red Book opens us to various constituents of the unconscious, dreams, archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the anima, which Jung writes elsewhere, quote, is a factor, a maker, in the proper sense of the word. Man cannot make it. On the contrary, it is always the a priori element in his moods, reactions, impulses, and whatever else is spontaneous in psychic life. Unquote. Not just conceptual, spontaneity is also a crucial formal component. Writing before the Red Book's publication, Susan Rowland argued that Jung, quote, Jung thought that psychology writing should aspire to the greatest authenticity by including unconscious psychic creativity within writing. For Jung, a piece of writing was only truly valid if it retained a trace of the spontaneity that he believed to be integral to psychic functioning. Publication of the Red Book demonstrates how the conviction emerged. However smitten we may be with the Red Book's beauty, editor Sonu Shamdasani is right to point out that a component of that beauty, like many improvisations, is its aesthetic roughness. This is not a well-written book, nor are the paintings formally realized, but it is more effective precisely for that reason, or it is effective precisely for that reason. It jars with his own category of the aesthetic. This quest to avoid the appearance of artifice is one way to understand Jung's vehement denial of Black Book 2 that what he was doing is art. Quote, then a voice said to me, that is art, unquote. Well, I said emphatically to this voice that what I was doing was not art, and I felt a great resistance rising up within me. The Red Book is rhetorically artless. There is no need to play the Goldilocks game about how artless it is. For Trump, improvisation is a consistent point of pride, commenting on Trump's penchant for gleaning information from the shows rather than his staff's briefing books. Presidential historian John Meacham comments, quote, his tendency to wing it, to act on his gut, effectively means that he's working off what might be called political hearsay. Indeed, when asked if he was responding intuitively when Wolf Blitzer confronted him about NATO, Trump responded, off the cuff, I'm an intuitive person. I didn't read books on NATO, quote, unquote. Blitzer saw the answer as a telling instance of what he believes is his special capacity to arrive at conclusions with little forethought, unabashedly improvisational. Meacham sums up Trump revels in his lack of conventional political or policy experience, unquote. Understanding the rhetoric of spontaneity and its fuel of primitivism helps explain Trump's political success. In analyzing his rhetoric, Politico's Gwendolyn Blair describes, quote, the rambling, the incomplete sentences, all those things that seemed proof of incompetence and inability to deal with the complicated, sophisticated issues that were going to come up for a president, not to mention all of the negative, disparaging, crude, and vulgar remarks, were reframed as sincerity, authenticity, what he's really thinking versus thoughtfulness, especially in a world where reality TV has played such a role. The usual metrics of reality, like actual truth, just don't matter. It's how it makes you feel when you're listening. And that's what he really was very, very strong at, unquote. To be spontaneous or imperfect is to be unmediated. To be mediated is to conform to and to be shaped by something less authentic. One might attribute Trump's success to television or the anti-intellectual strain that runs deep in American history, but the primitivism or pastoralism that fuels the rhetoric is universal. It touches upon the archetype of puer aeternus and of Mercurius. Hermes, in his alchemical guise, who for Jung represents the material upon which nature worked a little, but nevertheless left him imperfect. Just to mention, when building a cathedral, it's traditional to have the cornerstone be imperfect, just in case you ever want to start a cathedral. Let's see. So Shri says, Jung mapped the inner world with remarkable clarity, burning mist, the darkening that surrounds us, inhabits us, thus reporting in our world and ourselves courage and reflection. Yeah, we all have to think about it, don't we? New York Times CEO Mark Thompson notes the paradox of Trump's appeal, which depends significantly on the belief that he is a truth teller who will have nothing to do with the conventional language of politics. Quote, we shouldn't confuse anti-rhetorical truth-telling with actually telling the truth. One of the advantages of this positioning is that once listeners are convinced that you're not trying to deceive them in the manner of a regular politician, they may switch off the critical faculties they usually apply to political speech and forgive you an amount of exaggeration, contradiction, or offensiveness. And if establishment rivals of the media criticize you, your supporters may dismiss that as spin. The switching off of the critical faculties is what improvisers have been doing at least since Erasmus's Folly equipped Erasmus's Folly equipped that her extemporaneous speech, unpremeditated, was all the truer for that. A Catholic priest and monk, Erasmus's deep agenda in the praise of folly was to explore the Christian idea of ecstasy. Spontaneity is a trope, a stand-up for grace. Erasmus never would have confused the two. The truly great improvisers understand irony, saying one thing and meaning another. They invite us to switch off our critical faculties and accessing the muse's inspiration, God's grace, the romantic imagination or the unconscious in order to enlarge rather than reject the faculty of reason. Missing this irony, many critics of spontaneous texts merit the charge literary critic Jerome McCann levels against our, quote, uncritical absorption of romanticism's own self-representations, unquote. Trump's, Trump's cognitive dissonance style, on the other hand, the glittery objects he continually throws in our path, is an effort to put our critical thinking to sleep and appeal directly to instinctive fears and animosities that live on in our lizard brains. Okay. So I guess it's our lizard brains, Michelle, that we're talking about here. Let's see.
Yeah. And to go back on like how we are the egg core in Trump's astrology, his moon um is in Sagittarius, which is a sign all about truth.
Mhm.
And I've also heard that like he doesn't sleep well,
Yeah,
which is also a sign of Sagittarius. And like his mercurial nature is across the wheel of the zodiac. His ascendant
mm,
is Gemini. His sun is in Gemini, and he has Mercury in Gemini. So he's like very,
two-faced.
it's a very seesaw chart, but it's interesting that it is a lot. It his chart does deal with communication and truth in his own way.
Yeah, I do think that Mr. Fruitel has put his finger on a lot of stuff here that I don't think a lot of us have thought about before. Um, and
Oh, and also, what's um, and his, I wrote it down in one of these notes, but he is his personality type. I've looked it up and I've thought about it. He is either an ENFP or an ENTP. An extroverted, intuitive personality type is characterized by a focus on the external world and a drive to explore possibilities, ideas, and patterns. These types, such as the ENFP and ENTP, are often seen as enthusiastic, imaginative, and quick to make connections between different pieces of information. They thrive in novel situations and are drawn to what could be rather than routine, making them excellent innovators and problem solvers. But they can also be disorganized or lose interest once an idea becomes a reality.
yeah,
So,
I guess I concur that he's an ENFP. Um, I think he goes by his gut most often, and I do think he's perceiving. Um, he's perceiving what he can get away with. He doesn't make a list. He's not judging in that way. Um, let's see. So Shri says Jung mapped the inner world with remarkable clarity, burning mist, the darkening this surrounds us, inhabits us, thus reporting in our world and ourselves courage and reflection, uh, synchronicity and archetype. Okay. Carrying on here. Um, we have another 10 pages of this article, so I'll do my best to get through it. Um, The Hero's Journey Subverted. That's the title of the next section of this essay. The Hero's Journey Subverted. Like Joseph Campbell's hero, the improviser and his overtly unheroic persona know, or rather intuit, that the challenge is to be alert to life in the moment, to the unforeseen, to embrace such a view of man's purpose is to go beyond seizing the day. We must seize all life, all of life, not just carpe diem, but carpe vitam. To do so, as Wallace Stevens suggests, will pierce us with strange relation. To have one's armor and artificial boundaries of sophistication, civilization, and rationality breached and ruptured so that one can perceive and make new connections. This imagery, this imagery of a wound that becomes a gift suggests that the improviser can begin his or her journey in quest of a true, transcendent heroism only by abandoning his sense of adequacy or completeness. Um, yeah, I'm getting hit over the head by this often these days. I've underlined it here, double underlined it. I'll read it again. This imagery of a wound that becomes a gift suggests that the improviser can begin his or her journey in quest of a true, transcendent heroism only by abandoning his sense of adequacy or completeness. And um, I am often wounded by one of my colleagues, but I've had to um, accept, and thanks to Michelle for um, teaching me last week about the alcoholic's prayer, because it reminded me that everybody has trouble, and and that we have to be empathetic with them, even though it's sometimes difficult. This is exactly why Jung must murder the culture hero Siegfried. The unheroic nature of the murder is quite clear. Shot in the back twice from point blank range. Jung's illumination of Siegfried's murder, the little brown man at his side, a shadow or a trickster figure, is one of his roughest and least masterly. Siegfried is killed by not by moral or artistic strength, but by weakness. Jung becomes master of a freedom from mastery. Siegfried had everything in himself that I treasured as the greater and more beautiful. He was my power, my boldness, my pride. That hardly seems reason for murder, but just before the assassination, Jung explains why, quote, the heroic in you is the fact that you are ruled by the thought that this or that is good, that this or that performance is indispensable, that this or that cause is objectionable, this or that goal must be attained in headlong striving, work. This is that pleasure, this or that pleasure should be ruthlessly repressed at all costs. In his 1925 seminar, Jung reflects on this moment. Quote, I had killed my intellect, helped on to the dead by a personification of the collective unconscious, the little brown man with me. In other words, I deposed my superior function, unquote. Um, you know,
Oh, and I think I read somewhere that Jung said to work on the parts of your personality, like according to the MBTI,
Right,
the ones that you don't have,
right, right.
which is really difficult.
It is very difficult, and especially I find um, for an introvert like me, it's very difficult to be extroverted. And when I'm at a party, um, I'm most comfortable over in the side of the room talking to one person. I'm not one of the people that's in the center of the room yucking it up and having a good time. I'm speaking with one person and one person only. And so here's in my conversation here is ideal for me because I'm not overwhelmed by it. Sometimes when I get I don't know. I've had up to 100 on the on this part of the YouTube channel on the Zoom side of the YouTube channel. Uh, I really am kind of overwhelmed by it and find it difficult. And but I mean, I very much believe in what you're saying, and I know that. In the sensing and intuitive function, I'm terrible at sensing. I miss things all the time. I don't turn the page. I mean, a lawyer who was guiding me at the beginning of my legal career said, "Well, he doesn't turn the page." I don't turn the page. I make my judgments based on intuition. Um,
Yeah, like for me, I'm trying to work on like when you had math problems in math and the teachers like show the work
yeah.
instead of just coming to the answer, it's like, well, how did I get here?
Yeah, that I mean that's fair enough because I'm currently forced to teach three math classes, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. Fortunately, I'm the co-teacher, so I'm not expected to be the teacher of record. But I'm reminded uh, because we're having to try to teach the kids about proofs, I'm reminded how much I hated proofs. I could not stand it. And when I remember in the fourth grade, I specifically have a memory of this. We were learning long division, and I had no need to go through the division problem because I could instantly see the answer. I kid you not. Long division, I could see what the answer was without any difficulty. I mean, the thing about my seeing was that it wasn't exactly correct, but anyway, I could get the integers. I couldn't necessarily get the fractions. So I could see five, but I couldn't see five and a third or something like that. Right. Um, but I could instantly get the gist of it enough that I haven't had any difficulty with the mathematical parts of my life ever. And yet I have no recollection of learning any of those things. Um, I just know what the answer is. And it's spooky. It definitely is
It is
spooky.
spooky because like I try to examine like the information, but it's like even I don't know how they go together, but like when I arrive to the answer, it's like these two go together, but
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah, I
the
can find the
reasoning.
answer in a multiple choice, no problem. And as I look at the painting behind you on your wall, I'm reminded of my own paintings that I do each morning, except this morning when I was bowled over by my work as a eulogizer. Um, but uh, I don't know what I'm doing in my paintings. I literally do not know, and I I know that I'm communicating with my unconscious. That much I do know. And I'm letting my unconscious drive the boat, not me. And and I do know that people like the work. Other people do for whatever reason. And and I don't think they necessarily know. Okay. In other words, if I asked you now, what drove you to put that particular painting on your wall, Michelle, what would you
Mm.
say?
I
You
just thought
liked
it
it.
was far out. It looks like something from the 60s, I thought.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. All right, we're reading on. Jung deposed his superior function. It is by being wounded or mastered that the hero achieves a new kind of mastery. As William Carlos Williams writes in Cora in Hell, Improvisations, quote, by the brokenness of his composition, the poet makes himself master of a certain weapon which he could possess himself of in no other way. The archetype of the hero contains within it spontaneity's two poles, our longing for a new mastery that we attain by being mastered by some external force or by an exterior force that is not the superior function. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't ever think about this that logically, but anyway, what the figures who rise from his unconscious say and they ask him to do shocks Jung, dances with shocks. Jung dances with the red one, the devil, and with Salome, he engages in cannibalism. He embraces a Christ figure, Abraxas, who embraces evil as part of his being. As Shamdasani sums it up, he forced in his confrontation to encompass what he rejected in his life, inversely exalted, as Foucault says of the madman. The improviser is authorized by that grace beyond the reach of reason that is experienced because she has been marginalized. Paradoxically, improvisers marginalize and disempower themselves in order to gain the right to instruct the righteous. Trump distorts the hero's journey. Where the improviser treats his wound as a gift, conveys not humility, but a persistent sense of victimhood. Victimhood helps explain Trump's appeal to his base, who share his grievances. Like many narcissists, he is unable to acknowledge his deeper wounds. Trump and his followers embrace grievance with the adrenaline fueled fight or flight energy of the limbic brain. Look what they have done to us. While this rhetoric is saturated with broken grammar and images of American carnage, his self presentation is one of absolute mastery. I alone can fix it. As for Trump's little brown man, several of his associates lead the way, among them Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, and Vladimir Putin, insofar as members of the Trump base are also shadow figures, they are not a basket of deplorables, according as Hillary Clinton had it, but of the once deplored, the once rejected. Um, okay, that's the end of that section. Um, this is ringing quite true to me, although I didn't remember reading it. The next section of this essay is called Lord of Liars, Tricksters, Subjectivity, and Alt Facts. Born in pastoral Arcadia and, according to Jung, a reflection of an earlier rudimentary stage of consciousness, Hermes and his trickster brethren embody the primitivist premise at the heart of improvisation. With winged Teleria at his heels and roaming at whim anywhere, from Hades to Earth to Olympus, Hermes embodies improvisation's concomitant to quickness, both speed of composition or action and the embrace not just of the present moment, but of all life, carpe vitam. Improvisation's challenge to the mainstream is best captured in his Homeric hymn by infant Hermes's fart in brother Apollo's face. Quote, Hermes, lifted up by Apollo's arms, intentionally released an intentionally released an omen, an insolent servant of his stomach, a reckless little a reckless little messenger. Unquote. Okay, let me try that again because it just tickled me. Um, Improvisation's challenge to the mainstream is best captured in Homer's hymn, in his Homeric hymn by infant Hermes's fart in brother Apollo's face. And then in brackets, Hermes, lifted up by Apollo's arms, intentionally released an omen, an insolent servant of his stomach, a reckless little messenger, unquote. So much for the honor that Apollo, patron of high culture and the embodiment of Olympian order, is usually granted. Improvisation is a fart in the improvisation is a fart in the face of reason, decorum, and the notion that there is a right and orderly way. Okay, so Hermes is also in Roman culture, Mercury. And the significant thing about Hermes or Mercury is that Mercury is able to go into the underworld and bring back new things. And so I especially know this because of Jean Shinoda Boland's book, Gods and Every Man, and her companion book, Gods and Every Woman, because what she identifies is um, an archetype by which you're living, what God is living through you, and uh, mine, and has been for more than 30 years, as I read her book that long ago, has always been Hermes. And to a lesser extent, Vulcan, who is Hephaestus. And Vulcan is the god who works at his forge. And Vulcan is as an architect. And as you see from this YouTube channel, I have been building on this YouTube channel for many years, and so that suits my personality as well. Okay, one cannot overstate the role of Trickster in Jung's life and work. In Black Book 5, Philemon tells Jung that Hermes is your daemon, your daemon. Hermes is the trickster spirit that suffuses alchemy and magic, both central to Jung. Psychopompus, guide of souls to the underworld. Hermes is the god of the unconscious, the spirit of hermeneutics. He is the bringer of meaning. If Odysseus is Hermes in human form, Jung is the psychopompus voyaging in the collective unconscious seas of universal archetype. Trump conforms to the trickster figure in a malign, dark mirrored fashion. A man so governed by his id, he seems to be channeling Trickster, not Trickster brought to consciousness, but rather an identification with the archetype that Jung calls the characteristic feature of pathological reaction. This produces, Jung adds, a sort of inflation and possession by the emergent contents, so that they pour out in torrent, which no therapy can stop, which seems to describe Trent, which seems to describe Trump to a T. Yeah, you think? Okay. Uh, Trump conforms to the trickster figure in a the trickster we know and love takes down the pretentious knocks. I'm sorry, I'll read it again. The trickster we know and love takes down the pretentious, knocks us off our high horse when we deserve it. But where trickster stands in a complementary and compensatory relationship to the ego personality, Trump, the narcissist, is all ego aggrandizement. Trump promised to puncture the Capitol's pretensions. He promised to drain the swamp. But as the swamp creatures who populate his cabinet demonstrate, Trump seeks only to upend presidential traditions and norms and destroy the achievements of his immediate predecessor. Trump's Siegfried, all in service of his malignant narcissism. Okay, okay, reading on, I have thoughts and they escape me. For Lewis Hyde, Trickster embodies the mind that contingency demands, an openness to life's fluidity, and a determination to succeed. Trump's version is his willingness to lie and to contradict himself, often within moments, based on the contingencies of each momentary frame. If the rhetoric of reason is based on a high estimation of objectivity, the rhetoric of spontaneity celebrates the value of subjectivity. Jung's visionary analytical psychology embraces an empirical science that does not pursue positivism's chimera of objectivity, but embraces instead our inevitable subjectivity. To look at the psyche with the to look at the psyche with the psyche is inevitably subjective. If so, says Jung, let us explore the subjectivity of dreams and archetypes, complexes, and the collective unconscious, which, through subjective, though subjective, have this empirical basis. In dreams and by means of active imagination, we experience them. Jung's embrace of this empirical subjectivity is both a legacy of the Enlightenment and an expression of high modernism. Like the Enlightenment, it rejects truths derived secondhand from tradition or authority. Like high modernism, it rejects mere facticity without meaning based on empirical experience. Truth and meaning must contain an element of subjective consciousness. Okay, just a second. I need to have a drink here. We'll be back. One legacy of the empirical subjectivity is advocacy journalism, itself a cousin of the new journalism, which embraced the journalist's extreme subjectivity. For example, Hunt S. Thompson, covering the campaign trail in 1972 on assorted hallucinogens, unquote, fair and balanced, Fox News' newly retired slogan was, of course, absurd on its face, but it is best understood as the rebuttal of high modernism's embrace of subjectivity, where agendas drive information. Of course, information is always driven by an agenda, our point of view, what you will. The yearning of unmediated experience, improvisation's central trope, is doomed to failure intrinsically by the beholder's share inherent in perception. If we want to see accurately, we must acknowledge what we contribute, that the way that our perceptual lens shapes our world. There is no innocent I, says art historian E.H. Gombrich. No unmediated experience. For aesthetics, philosopher Nelson Goodman, quote, the I always comes ancient to its work, obsessed by its past and by old and new insinuations of the ear, nose, tongue, fingers, heart, and brain. It functions not as an instrument of self-powered and alone, but as a dutiful member of a complex and capricious organism. Not only how, but what it sees is regulated by need and prejudice. The idea is central to Hillman's project of revisioning psychology. Quote, every notion in our minds, each perception of the world and sensation in ourselves must go through a psychic organization in order to happen at all. Every single feeling or observation occurs as a psychic event by first forming a fantasy image. And it is no less true in the pursuit of science. We see light as a particle or as a wave, depending on the hypothesis and experiment we submit to it to. The agenda of advocacy journalism, journalists, and whistleblowers, whom Trump finds so objectionable, is simply that America should be a nation ruled by law, science, and a sense of fair play, an agenda mediated by the norms established by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Denying this hermetic and modernist truth, Jung manages to have it both ways. If journalists reporting is shaped by the ideologies that inform their advocacy, fake facts, then why should he not make up facts according to whim, alt facts? Okay. Why should okay. Yeah, okay, that's the end of that section. I just wanted to comment a bit on the fact that earlier in this year I was in mourning and I was wearing black every time I appeared on this program. And and finally there came a time a couple of months back where um, my mourning period was over because I realized, like a dead person, that we are not ever going to bring back the country for which I served as a Marine Lieutenant Colonel, but um, that country was killed by the current Trump administration and is dead as it can be. And it's up to us recognizing the midpoint between the red and the blue, therefore my purple shirt, um, to build a new country. We have to build a new country. It's based on things that came in the past, but we can't get the old country back. So we have to build a new country. And to a certain degree, I agree with Trump that um, some things needed to be destroyed, and properly so. And now we have to build something new. So let me look here. Okay. The next section of this essay is entitled Improviser in Chief, Culture Bearer or Destroyer. Trump's rise could not have disconcerted me more. In March 2015, my Anatomy of Improvisation was published, 40 years in the making. Like democracy, I argued improvisation believes every voice, however marginal or foolish, should be heard, and every vote counted. So when Jung descended the golden escalator at Trump Tower to launch his campaign, quote, I am running to listen to your voice, unquote, I saw that improvisation could also be the agent of demagoguery, where the where the hermetic trickster is a culture bearer who brings fire. and light to humanity and invents the rituals that will honor the gods, creating Hellenic culture. Trump enjoys his role as culture destroyer. He also supposed, I need to change my spectacles. Just a second. I'm just having a little trouble with uh oh, maybe I don't need to change my spectacles. I am wearing my reading glasses, so maybe I'm just having trouble reading. Okay.
Oh, do you want me to read?
Yeah, if you know where we are, I would love for you to read because I've lost my place.
Okay.
What is
Okay.
the sentence
He
for
was
begin?
supposed to be a great maker of things, writes Rebecca Solnit, but he was mostly a breaker. In so doing, he seems to be channeling Dionysus rather than Hermes. For Trump, a dark, inflated improviser goes beyond Hermes' gentle ironies. His is that Dionysian improv that seeks to tear everything apart, even improv's decorum the
Decorum.
of decorum
Yeah.
of the indecorous. Dionysus is often considered a trickster, but rarely in the same breath with Hermes. Like Hermes, Dionysiac
Dionysus.
Dionysus
Okay.
religion functions as an anti-system and protest movement. A fart in the face or poke in the eye. Dionysus is a type like Christ on the Dionysus is a type like Christ of the vegetative dying god. Twice born, the second time from Zeus's thigh, he promises rebirth or rememberment. But Dionysus is a more extreme trickster figure, one who, like Hermes, promises to be the catalyst for a new order, but rarely hangs around for its emergence. It is difficult to dismiss the final image of Euripides'
Euripides is,
Bacchae,
you know,
the most complete portrait of a Greek deity that we have, which ends with the ultra rationalist King Pentheus's severed head on Dionysus Thyreosus or pike, and no new king in the offing. Perhaps Euripides saw something later. Perhaps Euripides saw something later commenters missed.
per, let me read that sentence again. Perhaps Euripides saw something later commentators miss. Okay. So in your as I understand it, in Euripides's Bacchae, the most complete portrait of a Greek deity that we have, which ends with the ultra rationalist king Pentheus's severed head on Dionysus's thyrsus or pike, and no new king in the offing. Perhaps Euripides saw something later commentators missed. So what he's saying here, to me, is that Pentheus was a very logic-oriented king, as we have people who are very logic-oriented now. And uh, I can imagine the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where um, where there's a Muslim terrorist, I guess, who's coming after Indiana Jones, and I forget whether he's coming with a knife or a whip, but anyway, Indiana Jones says, "Oh, screw this," and he just pulls out his pistol and shoots him. And so that's the image that we're seeing here. That the logic of fear, just isn't in Trump's mind. That Trump says, he hears something that's very logical from previous times, and he just says, "Oh, screw this," and he goes on. And so, in a sense, I have to agree with him about some things. For example, um, he is now attacking these boats in the Caribbean and in the Southern Pacific Ocean around Venezuela. And my only question is, um, you know, are they fishermen or are they drug runners? Now, the images I've seen show a boat that's got four big outboards on the back of the boats and they're moving along very quickly. That doesn't seem to be a fisherman to me. And what I know is that I have five people in my close life, not necessarily relatives, but people I know personally, who have died from drug overdoses. And so we have, in fact, been attacked by the drug runners for decades, and everybody's been, I don't know, sort of shocked and awed about it, and they have never done anything about it. And so Trump just says, "Screw this! I'm just going to start blowing these guys up." And it is my hope, my sincere hope, that his action is backed up by good intelligence. I wouldn't want us being out blowing up fishermen. At the same time, um, we are in fact at war with these cartels, and my Marine self says, let's just go kill them and scare them off so that they stop sending quite so much drugs at us. Now, the problem with Jung's, I'm sorry, there's a Freudian slip if ever there was one. The problem with Trump's approach is that we don't know what the consequences will be. We'll be dealing with these consequences for decades, and very much like the Israeli-Palestinian situation right now, where Bibi Netanyahu has just been slaughtering the Palestinians way out of proportion. And uh, a lot of people like what he's done, but the reality is that we don't know what the consequences of that is going to be for decades, for generations. People are going to remember what they did. And
Yeah, and people are going to remember when the students protested and the police came. Like that was horrifying to me.
yeah,
That for when I saw that, I was like, everything is dead.
right. And so Trump's attitude of putting the National Guard in our cities and just grabbing people off the street, while there's a certain functionality to that, um, the consequences of it are still far from known, and one would expect our administration to work with more care, I guess. Um,
Or Congress to do their job. But I mean, I could see, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to be in politics and put yourself in that position, then you have to take a stand of some sort, right? But
yeah, and um, obviously our our approaches of stopping the drug trade have not worked up till now. Um, for me, I favor legalizing drugs than than and um, offering medication and support for addicts so that they can get away from drugs instead of incarcerating people because um, that hasn't worked. You know, it's been a method of putting a lot of young black men in jail. So we have a new form of slavery, basically. Excuse me. We have some allergen in the area. I have to excuse myself for a minute. I'm going to get a glass of water.
sure. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Um, did anything happen in my absence?
No.
Okay. Um, yeah, I'm talking about uh, the
Oh,
drug situation. Uh,
Skip, I think it's some sort of static on your end when you're talking.
okay, you're hearing static?
Yes.
Gosh, let me try something. That may have to do with the connection of my headset. Are you
Oh.
still hearing it?
Yeah, I am still
Oh
hearing it.
gosh. Okay. Um, so okay. Uh, I guess what I could do, let me try this. Let me try taking my this off, but the question is, can I hear you then? Um, all right, you can still hear me, presumably, right?
I can still hear you, yeah.
Okay. I can hear you, but you can hear me, but I can't hear you. So let me
Oh,
see if I can
this is
change my
better.
system for a moment in a moment here.
Oh, it fixed itself.
Is it still staticky?
No.
No, it's not staticky.
Yeah, it fixed
Okay,
itself.
then It has to do with this headset. So let me see if I can change my hearing system so I can hear not through my Yeti microphone, but through a different system. All right. The problem with this is I can hear, but I'm hearing delayed,
Oh,
which is not good. Um, sorry. I'm going to have to listen through my mic because what goes out on YouTube is like 40 seconds delayed from what you and I are hearing.
oh, okay.
And so I can't have a conversation with you without listening through my Yeti mic. And am I still what was it better with was it better without my micro uh without this plugged in? Could you hear me
Um,
better?
it was working fine until after you came right back from getting water.
Hmm.
And then it was staticky for a while, but it
Seems to be better.
on yeah, on my end it's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Maybe it let's just try to continue then, because we're within striking distance of the end of this. Okay, like Dionysus's like Dionysus, Aurora Bromios, Trump has stumbled on a well-established pattern associated with the cult of Dionysius, which flourished for 1,000 years until the triumph of Christianity. A glance at this obscure cult might help us understand current American political discourse. According to Richard Seaford, Dionysus is 3,000 years old and our oldest living symbol. His cult is long dead, but as Seaford argues, the longings for transcendence that Dionysus spoke to have endured, an irreducible symbol of the antithesis of something basically wrong with our society. Known as the god of wine and revelry, Dionysius, or Bacchus in Rome, is the god of ecstasy, the transformation of individual identity. According to the chorus of Euripides's Bacchae, Dionysius gave the pain-removing delight of wine equally to the wealthy man and to the lesser man. He is not worshipped through the mediation of a priesthood in a temple, but directly in nature. He is God of the people and of their demigods. He is God of the people and of their demagogues. In Euripides's Bacchae, Dionysus incites his followers to tear Pentheus, the autocratic and hyper-rational Theban king, limb from limb. Pentheus's own mother, Agave, blinded by Dionysian ecstasy and mistaking her son for a mountain lion, leads the charge. If Trump's followers seem blind to his imperfections and evidence to the contrary notwithstanding, trust he will deliver on his promises. That's just how Dionysus functions. He intoxicates. As Seaford points out, Dionysus is unique among the gods in the extent to which he is accompanied by a cortege, his theosos, which Trump clearly lacks, I'm sorry. While Trump clearly lacks Dionysus's feminine side, nonetheless his thyasus, like Dionysus's, contains more women than polls predicted for a serial woman abuser. It is ungenerous, but nonetheless difficult to ignore the resemblance of Trump's red-capped retinue to Dionysus' other followers, the Priapic satyrs. Okay. And an enemy to autocrats like Pentheus, and offering ecstasy to anyone who will drink his heady wine. Dionysus's initial appeal is democratic and egalitarian, while in a compelling essay, Elizabeth Mika sees the roots of Trump's there's Freud again, sees the roots of Trump's tyranny in his or his base's malignant narcissism. It is also true that tyranny has archetypal resonance. This is a matter of historical fact. In classical Greece and Rome, aspiring tyrants linked themselves to Dionysus to challenge the reigning hierarchies, to drain the swamp. The forgotten man and woman will never be forgotten again, Trump tweeted after his win. Democracy and demagoguery share more than the Latin root. Though Trump's campaign broke every rule and overturned every assumption, he was following in the footsteps of the all-conquering Roman Mark Antony, who was welcomed back to Rome as Dionysus by the whole community before transforming Rome's oligarchy into an autocratic empire. Other Roman emperors identified with Dionysus, renowned for his sadism, extravagance, and sexual perversity. Caligula dressed as the god and was called the new Dionysius. Nero, who identified as the new Dionysus, is tweeting the new fiddling, is tweeting the new fiddling. Trump's identification with the Dionysius archetype helps explain his allure and rise to power. Like Dionysius, Trump seems determined to rip everything apart. In 2014, he imagined apocalypse as the solution to the country's ills. Quote, when the economy crashes, when the country goes to total hell and everything is a disaster, then you'll have he chuckles, you'll have riots to go back to where we used to be when we were great, unquote. Promise this apocalypse. Trump's bacchante care little about his policies or his failure to achieve them. In their blind ecstasy, his base seems ready to dismember their fellow citizens. As Trump likes to threaten, you can count on it. Okay. All right, we have still another section, but I thought that was quite observant and fascinating take on Trump. Okay, Trickster and civic renewal. It is difficult to imagine Trump following the course of the Trickster cycle that Jung following Paul Radin describes. Quote, as Radin points out, the civilizing process begins within the framework of the Trickster cycle itself. The naive reader may imagine that when the dark aspects disappear, they are no longer there in reality. But that is not the case at all, as experience shows. What actually happens is that the conscious mind is then able to free itself from the fascination with evil and is no longer obliged to live it compulsively, unquote. But what one fears is the shadow's return, which Jung describes in a passage that captures what we have been witnessing in Trump's political career. Quote, but if the conscious should find itself in a critical or doubtful situation, then it soon becomes apparent that the shadow has not dissolved into nothing, but is only waiting for a favorable opportunity to reappear as a projection upon one's neighbors. If this trick is successful, there is immediately created between them that world of primordial darkness where everything that is characteristic of Trickster can happen, even on the highest plane of civilization. The best examples of these monkey tricks, as popular speech aptly and truthfully sums up this state of affairs in which everything goes wrong and nothing intelligent happens, except by mistake at the last moment, are naturally to be found in politics. Unquote. Projection upon one's neighbor, primordial darkness, these monkey tricks found in politics. Jung's anticipation of the devolution we've been experiencing is striking. If Trump is channeling a dark Dionysus, is there hope for civic renewal? If there is, then surely it will come homeopathically in small doses of his fellow trickster Hermes. For Nietzsche, it was Apollo who, uniting with Dionysus, gave birth to tragedy. We need rather a union between Apollo and Hermes's comedic spirit. We stand now before a wall already built by Trump, not a wall of bricks and mortar paid for by the Mexican peso, but rather one built with the cognitive dissonance he bewilders us with, a wall against reason and logic and normality. In Trump's wall, there is no gate. Dizzied, we face aporia, no pore, no opening, no way forward. But such rigidity and opaqueness are exactly what invites the shimmering opportunistic Hermes, lord of thresholds, gates, and hinges. The way through this apocalypse is not by Saturnian denial or Apollonian analytical rebuttal, and least of all by the Aries-driven anger and violence of the Antifas. It is by laughing, the laughter that Hermes used to defeat Apollo's and Zeus's anger in the hymn. Most of all, we need the metic gift of creativity by which Hermes improvised the lyre out of a tortoise shell, a gift with which he deflated Apollo's anger. In return for his brother's metic creativity and his winkling good humor, Apollo gifted Hermes his winged caduceus. Jeanette Paris describes Hermes's wand as entwined by two serpents of equal but opposing force, a symbol of equilibrium through the integration of contrary forces. Jung found his equilibrium not by meeting the violence of the Great War with violence, but rather by developing the active imagination. He fought it with the Hermetic code, playing from which emerged both his Red Book and his analytical psychology. Civic renewal must come through Hermetic improvisation, street theater, flash mobs, rallies, and marches. The Women's March on Washington, following Trump's inauguration, elicited brilliant Hermetic gestures, the bright pink vagina costumes and pussycat pink knit caps, The Women's March also led to a groundbreaking number of women across the country who decided to run for office, from school boards and city councils to state legislatures and governor's races. These women bring Apollo to the party. We must not forget or shun the Apollonian element. As Jung writes, quote, conscious and unconscious do not make a whole when one of them is suppressed and injured by the other. If they must contend, let it at least be a fair fight with equal rights on both sides. Both are aspects of life. Consciousness should defend its reason and protect itself, and the chaotic life of the unconscious should be given the chance of having its way too. As much of it as we can stand. This means open conflict and open collaboration at once. That evidently is the way human life should be. It is the old game of hammer and anvil. Between them, the patient iron is forged into an indestructible whole, an individual. It's one thing for the improviser to gather the energy and power of an unstructured thesis, but once the gate is open, we must act to address or redress the structures of government being undermined by Trump and the Republican red map gerrymandering project. Through hermetic improvisation and Apollonian decorous normative action, we can, of Apollonian decorous action, we can recover the true spirit and the letter of democracy, the polyphony of one person, one vote, every voice heard. Okay, that is the end of that essay, and I hope it's been useful to you. Sheree says at the end, when Jung was writing, it was the age of industrialization, the loss of religion. When God is dead, where do you turn? That is where his therapy turns up and finds new meaning. And I would argue, and have argued, that Nietzsche declared the death of God, and we have killed him, meaning the death of the children's story that has been told in the churches for 2,000 years, the narrative that churches have told, which worked for 2,000 years. But now we have to understand it in a different way. We have to understand it as not the propitiating of a God who is not controllable, and not the children's tale to a father, but rather our interaction among ourselves will be our way of honoring God. And this is why Jung talked about the collective unconscious being God and the individual unconscious being your God. And unfortunately, we all, 8.5 billion of us, have our own God. And so it's the cacophony of our God, all these gods that come together to create the collective unconscious. And so every country is a bit different, developed a bit differently, and gradually all things come together. And so that this all reminds me to go back to Jung's opening in the Red Book. the very first chapter. And in it, we find the supreme meaning. And so the supreme meaning, sorry, I mean to kick my cord there. So Jung says in the first few paragraphs of the Red Book, and we can be sympathetic and think of it in our time because it helps to give us a sort of a sense of place. And so let us put Jung in our place for a moment. If I speak of the spirit of this time, I must say no one and nothing can justify what I must proclaim. Justification is superfluous to me, since I have no choice, but I must. I have learned that in addition to the spirit of this time, there is still another spirit at work, namely that which rules the depths of everything contemporary. The spirit of this time would like to hear of use and value. I also thought this way, and my humanity still thinks this way, but that other spirit forces me nevertheless to speak beyond justification, use, and meaning. Filled with human pride and blinded by the presumptuous spirit of the times, I long sought to hold the other spirit away from me. But I did not consider that the spirit of the depths from time immemorial and for all the future possesses a greater power than the spirit of this time, who changes with the generations. The spirit of the depths has subjected all pride and arrogance to the power of judgment. He took away my belief in science. He robbed me of the joy of explaining and ordering things, and he let devotion to the ideals of this time die out in me. He forced me down to the last and simplest things. The spirit of the depths took my understanding and all my knowledge and placed them at the service of the inexplicable and the paradoxical. He robbed me of speech and writing for everything that was not in his service, namely the melting together of sense and nonsense, which produces the supreme meaning. Sound a lot like our time, does it? Does to me. But the supreme meaning is the path, the way, and the bridge to what is to come. That is the God yet to come. It is not the coming God himself, but his image, which appears in the supreme meaning. God is an image, and those who worship him must worship him in the image of the supreme meaning. The supreme meaning is not a meaning and not an absurdity. It is image and force in one, magnificence and force together. The supreme meaning is the beginning and the end. It is the bridge of going across and fulfillment. The other gods died of their temporality, yet the supreme meaning never dies. It turns into meaning and then into absurdity, and out of the fire and blood of their collision, the supreme meaning rises up, rejuvenated anew. The image of God has a shadow. The supreme meaning is real and casts a shadow. But what can be actual and corporeal and have no shadow? The shadow is nonsense. It lacks force and has no continued existence through itself. But nonsense is the inseparable and undying brother of the supreme meaning. Like plants, so men also grow, some in the light, others in the shadows. There are many who need the shadows and not the light. The image of God throws a shadow that is just as great as itself. The supreme meaning is great and small. It is as wide as the space of the starry heaven and as narrow as the cell of the living body. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Those are the first words contained in the Red Book itself. I was reading from the Red Book Reader's Edition. And you can get your own copy of it from Barnes and Noble or wherever you buy your books. Okay, I don't understand fully what Cherie is talking about here, but I think it's an interesting observation. So let me read it. Dr. Ian McGilchrist was about the Isle of Man car racers going over 200 miles an hour in racing, and those who knew what was around the bend 10 miles ahead was intuitive. But the history of the Isle of Man, okay, and that's where her comment um, ends, so I cannot find it. I cannot say anything further, but next week maybe we can discuss that. Okay, so we have fourth upcoming on this Thursday, my favorite holiday of the year. This is in America, we call it the Thanksgiving holiday, and it's my favorite because um, it's not about religion, it's about family and giving thanks for the many things that we have. We all, everyone who can hear this and understand it, um, is a winner of the lottery. Okay. Apparently, approximately 300 million sperm attempt to fertilize a single egg, and most of the time, only one wins, the rest die. And so all of us are already winners of the lottery, and we need to give thanks for that. Um, so Cherie says the anima, the wise old man, the twister, the divine child, the self. Now it is not the case. They are real figures that has embedded somewhere in our brains. They are metaphors for psychological understanding, I suppose. So that's the thing. All of this that we talk about in this group is metaphorical. Archetypes cannot be found in the human body. They are in the ether. They're in somehow the cells of our body, which now we can define down to the DNA molecule. Um, we're all different, and and yet we all have these archetypes that we interact with, and that they're not in us; they're out somewhere there floating around. Okay, Michelle, final comments for the day.
Yes. Final comments.
I just think it's spooky that this topic came up at this time. I think that's spooky. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it is spooky. It was an interesting article. I enjoyed reading it today. I had read it, of course, when it first came out about 7 years ago. Um, and today, as I have been for some time, we were reading from Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions, edited by Murray Stein and Thomas Arst. This is volume two, which we've almost gotten to the end of. I think we have one more essay in volume two, and then we have to go on to volume three, which suggests I need to find my copy because, yes, we have only one more essay in volume two. I have I have them all, but I don't have them all necessarily at hand. I did have a synchronicity happen to me this week, um, which is this. I have for a while now been wanting to refer to my Bible because Jung often uh, refers to biblical passages, but somewhere in our moving, I've misplaced um, the Bible that I bought, wow, about 35 years ago, I guess, long while ago. Yeah, in the early 90s, I bought it. And so it was about 35 years old, but I've been periodically having this urge to find it. And this week I decided to give up and rather than tear my house apart, just buy a new Bible, which I did. And by synchronicity, uh, that urge resulted in my Bible arriving on the day that I was invited to give my first eulogy. I've never given a eulogy before. And and I do think it's appropriate for me to offer this eulogy, even though um, I've only known my friend for maybe 15 years and not much of his life. But in any case, my Bible arrived the day I was invited to give a eulogy, and I looked the Bible up in um, YouTube again, or I'm sorry, in Amazon again, the version that I purchased, and it shows this particular Bible opened to Psalm 34, um, verses something like 11 through 17, or 17 through 22, maybe. I don't remember exactly, but anyway, it's Psalm 34, which is a passage in the Psalms about righteousness. And that sums up my colleague, who was a very precise man, a very righteous man. And so, this was meant to be because this eulogy is writing itself. And goodness gracious. So anyway, and this essay that we've been reading today, wow, he did hammer a lot of stuff that we're dealing with uh, in spades. Speaking of my bridge playing, um, and
Change is definitely around the corner. We don't know
yes,
what kind of change.
it will, yes, it will be change. And we are building a new world, ladies and gentlemen. We are building a new country and a new world. And please be gentle with those who are on the opposite side of the spectrum. I wear purple very often for a reason because I see positive elements in my MAGA brethren. Sometimes they point out something that we maybe should have been doing for a long time. And I'm speaking specifically about these drug running boats that are bringing deadly drugs into our country and killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. A couple of years back, the number was over 100,000, I think. That's a lot of people to die. And just for perspective, in the whole Vietnam War, we killed 58,000 Americans approximately. And um, and the drug scourge does kill tens of thousands, surely, and in one recent year, over 100,000 people. And that's terrible, and we need to try to get a handle on that. And whatever we've been doing, including building walls, hasn't worked. So,
No, the only thing that works, that's been proven to work, is meetings
yeah,
and fellowship with others like you that are going through the exact same thing as you.
assuredly.
And then they tell you to stay in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, yeah. So, Michelle, tell me again the prayer that you read for me a couple times last
Oh,
week.
yeah.
What is the name of that prayer?
The
Is
sick man's prayer.
the sick man's prayer? Okay.
Yes. The sick man's prayer is a prayer from Alcoholics Anonymous that helps people reframe their resentments by focusing on compassions for others. The prayer asks God to help the person show the same tolerance, pity, and patience to those who have offended them as they would to a sick friend. And then the prayer goes, where is it? God, when a person offends me, help me to remember this is a sick person. Help me show the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. Show me how I can help them. Save me from being angry. Thy will be done.
Um, and this prayer really spoke to me last week. Yeah, and it did change um, my trajectory because one of my colleagues, although a very good teacher, um, is very tough on students, and um, that I think it's partially because she has not fully gotten into the culture of my school. My faculty and my fellow faculty members and administrators is almost unanimously empathetic. And while she has certain empathy, she has habits. She's been teaching for 29 years, and she has certain habits that are typical of a general education school and not of an alternative education, which is what my school is. It's a part of our public school system, but we have clearance to treat children in a different way. And I have a student who is very sensitive and who is already an accomplished artist at age 16 and one who's selling her work. But she's extremely sensitive. And we had an incident a week ago, Friday, um, which the the adults were not helping this student, and I recognized it immediately, and um, I demanded that she be not forced to go to other classes that day. Her next class where she was art, which is the one class that she can cope with, and so I demanded that she be taken out of the regular school system and stay in art for the rest of the day. She actually went home early that day, and she's not been back. And and I was really angry with my colleague for doing that. But um, interestingly, each day she keeps asking about this particular student. I think she knows what she did. And late last week, she came to me and said that she herself had been raised in a foster home and that she had been a teen mother herself, and in need of the kind of compassion and empathy that we actually provide in our school. And she didn't need to share that with me. Um, but the fact that she did suggests to me that she is on her way to becoming one of our better teachers. She already is, in a traditional sense, an excellent teacher, no doubt about that. But she hadn't really gotten the memo about the empathy of our group, and I think she's gotten it now. Uh, Unfortunately, at the cost of this young woman who was the student, and and I I hope that the consequence of the whole thing will be that that student gets to go to a different school, not to our school, because um, she really needs to be in an art institute, not in our school. Um,
Our institutes were great.
you know,
But that's interesting how it unfolded.
yeah, but I mean, I was all last weekend before you and I spoke last week. I was writing in my head the the nastygram email that I planned to write to this teacher, blaming her, and you changed my trajectory in that so that I did not do that. I um, and something about my change in trajectory caused this woman to come and tell me something very private about her own life, that which I was not expecting at all. And um, and so somehow I think that we've got um, something going on between the two of us that is positive. And so once again, I thank you very
Awesome.
much, Michelle.
Well,
And
thank you.
and the sick man's prayer is definitely worth all of our consideration. And if you're not familiar with the 12-step program that has was developed initially in Alcoholics Anonymous, I recommend to you a book called Carl Jung and Alcoholics Anonymous, which has has the details the of a 12-step program in the back of it as an appendix, and it's worth knowing what Jung's role was with the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous, which was at best a very limited role. Uh,
But
but
it changed everything because they were trying to work on the steps and like people would get so far but then relapse.
yeah,
Um, and Young was able to um, work with them and figure out like what
well,
could keep someone.
he worked with one man, Roland H. And Roland H. was the
Yeah,
man.
he was really rich.
He was the man that went to Bill W. and talked about what he had learned from Carl Jung, and that did change everything. And Jung knew nothing about this for his entire life. But one small thing that he had said to Roland H. changed everything. And so, in the sense that one small thing that Michelle said to me last week about the sick man's prayer changed my trajectory. In that same sense, Roland H. carried a piece of information that Jung gave him back to Bill W. And as some of you know, Bill W. was the official founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and so it's been helping people who have various addictions ever since, and it's been rolled out into many other areas as well. The idea of the 12-step program. So it's a very powerful idea and method for solving
Yeah.
addiction.
And if you can get the first three steps down, like you can get through anything. I mean,
Mhm.
the first three steps are basically the whole thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And Cherise says Jung did not know he had helped AA until Bill W. had written to him, and
oh,
he received Bill W.'s email or letter in 1960, which was only a few months before he died, and he was very grateful to hear of it. But
that reminds me, Roland guy, he ended up under um Young's care because he ran his car through a house.
mm,
Which is wild.
yeah. So in any case, I recommend to you this book, Jung and Alcoholics Anonymous. It's for everyone to read, not only people who are struggling with addiction. And I don't know, for some reason, I have been spared any attraction to any addiction in my lifetime, and I don't know why. My grandfather was certainly an alcoholic. Uh, my paternal grandfather was, and he died at age 68. Um, and um, and he had a stroke when he was 57. Um, and so uh, so I'm very familiar with what the consequences of addiction are from that. And if you want to understand what I'm talking about, all you have to do is go read Eugene O'Neill's play entitled "Death of a Salesman." That was
Oh,
my grandfather. Um, he was the archetypal Willie Loman, and it took me a long time to forgive him. And it's important, it seems to me, for all of us to um, make peace with our ancestors and our siblings. There often are fights between siblings. I certainly have had almost a lifelong fight with my sister. Um, and it's it comes up in many families, and so if you um, if you want, I mean, I went and saw my sister last December after I went to my daughter's 50th birthday party, and it probably will be the last time I will see her because she was not in good shape. Um, and she's in a nursing home and not well. Um, so any any reconciliation between the two of us is probably beyond the boards, but I have reconciled with her in a certain way, and certainly with my both of my grandfathers, who I was very um, derisive of. I'd say in my young adulthood, I was extremely derisive of both of them, but now, after their death, I've been able to make peace with them because I understand the difficulties that they faced in their lives and the good things also that they did in their lives. And uh, and so I've made peace with them. And and my point is that it's possible. You can do it by active imagination. You can do it by prayer. You can open your unconscious to let in forgiveness in your lives. And I think it's very important. Um, so anyway, thank you, Michelle. And
Thank you.
I will see everybody next Sunday. And also, I have started to publish um, the videos of the advanced reading group. I've got 4 of them up. I'll do at least one more today. And I do invite you all to join us. Um, I'm not going to take the time to find the link for that, but you can, if you're interested in the advanced reading group, where we're reading Women Who Run with the Wolves, please send me an email to skip.conover@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send you the link. We meet at 5 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, regardless of um, whether it is um, daylight time or standard time. It's always 5 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. So thank you, everyone, for being there. Bye-bye. Peace.